All right, guys, so for today, picking up day 2 on those notes, we are actually going to look at factoring the quadratic that has 3 terms. So a big thing with factoring is how many terms it has. If it has 2 terms, there's different ways we factor those. If it has 3 terms, there's another option. And then when we look at ones with 4 terms, there's another option for factoring. So we need to make sure we're always looking at how many terms something has. All right, so first thing is just, look, I even put the F word on there just to remind you what we were doing. All right, so multiplying, let's kind of refresh our memories. We've had some days off. If I would have given you this and I asked you to multiply, what does it look like? All right, so we would multiply x times x, which is x squared. X times -3 is -3x. 4 times x, 4x. And then 4 times -3 is -12. And then what would you have done from there? Good, the like terms. And those like terms typically fall right in the middle, right? So we have x squared, that would give me a positive x, or 1x, and then -12. All right, kind of humor me here. I got 3 of them on here, and then I want to kind of talk about, there's a reason I have 3 of them. All right, over here, if we multiply, x squared minus 7x minus 2x, and then plus 14. Like terms in the middle. It's x squared minus 9x and plus 14. And then the one down here, we get x squared plus 6x plus 5x, and then plus 30. Like terms, x squared plus 11x plus 30. All right, I had 3 because I want you to kind of notice something. What did you notice about all 3 of them? They have x squared. Good. So everything we are going to factor today will have an x squared. Okay, that's good to point out though, because a lot of times people are like, yeah, it's got 3 terms, I can factor that, right? We're like, it's got to be an x squared to start with, okay, for us to factor those. What else do you notice about them? The like terms. Good. The middle ones were always my like terms. I went together. That's going to happen when we're factoring. It's good to notice. Anything else? Okay. Good. Last number does not have variables on it. That's good to notice. We're always going to have an x squared, right? You got something with an x in there, and then that last one's just a plain old number. Anything else? Where's my numbers coming from? What did these last 2 numbers give me? It gave me my last number. And then when I put those like terms together, they always give me my middle number. Okay? So in order to get this last one, we're looking at the numbers that go here. These multiply to give me that. So that's how we always start with factoring. Because factoring is I'm going to give you this and ask you to turn it back into this. It's like you're undistributing all of it. Okay? So what our kind of game plan is starting with this last number, what do you multiply to get 30? Right? And that's where these numbers are coming from. And the other important thing we have to look at is look at our signs. That's a positive 30. How do you multiply to get a positive number? A positive times a positive. Look at my signs. They were both pluses. Now wait a minute, this one has a positive at the end. Yeah. A negative times a negative. That'll still make a positive, right? But look at this number. It's negative, right? That one's positive. No, I scrolled too far. So that last one is positive, and you got to stop and think. I'm multiplying to get that last number. How do you multiply to get a positive? I can have 2 positives, or I can have 2 negatives. Well, how do you know which one I should use? The middle one. The middle one was positive, so I'm going to use the 2 positives. That middle one's negative, so I must go 2 negatives. Okay, what about this one? My last one was negative. How do you multiply to get a negative number? 1 plus and 1 minus. Look at my signs. 1's plus, 1's minus. This one's a little trickier because I can't always tell which one should go where, but I know 1's plus, 1's minus. Okay? All right. So kind of keeping all that in your heads. This just is kind of a breakdown of what we just talked about, so you have it in your notes for you if you need it. All right. So let me give you guys this flow chart. All right. But on this flow chart, anytime you have to factor, very first thing underneath there is GCF, which is what we worked on Wednesday. Okay, today we're going to focus, this branches off into 2 terms and 3 terms. Today we're looking at 3 terms. Okay, 2 terms will come later this week. All right, so when you have 3 terms, they kind of fall into 2 different categories. Okay, one of them does not have a number in front of that x squared. One of them does. Okay, now, no matter which one we're looking at, I'm going to teach it to you the same way so that you're not like, okay, if I do it this one, it's this way, and it's this way. Like, too many options confuses people. I'm just going to teach it to you. 3 terms, this is how we factor, okay? Then as we kind of go through it, people start to pick up some tricks along the way to make it even easier. All right, well, what we're going to do to start, you will list all of your factors of A and C, meaning what do you multiply to get that first number? What do you multiply to get that last number? It's going to set up in our 2 parentheses, right? If that last one is positive, we know they're going to have the same signs in here. They're either both plus or they're both minus. Okay, if the last one's negative, how do you multiply to get a negative? They're opposite. 1's plus, 1's minus. That's how we're kind of figuring out our signs. Okay, after we put the signs in, then we're going to plug in those factors. We're going to kind of guess and check to see which grouping works. Sometimes people get lucky and they're great guessers and they guess on the first try. Others will go through every possibility before they get the right answer. So I'm sorry if that's you, okay? But you can always distribute, put it on there so you know what I'm talking about, to check your answers. All right, and I'll kind of give you some tricks as we kind of get going through this, okay? All right, so 2x squared plus 11x plus 12. We're going nice and slow through these, okay? All right, so the directions were to factor. First and foremost, do you have a GCF? Is there a number that goes into all of them or a variable the same in all of them? No. Okay, so I don't have to worry about doing that. Tomorrow's focus is going to be the GCF and then what we did today. We're just going to kind of put it together tomorrow. Today, we're just going to mainly focus on just this part of factoring. All right, so to factor, we will set up 2 sets of parentheses. And we want to put our signs in first so we can figure that part out. So to figure out your signs, again, we look at the last number. If the last one is positive, how do you multiply to get a positive? Good. 2 negatives or 2 positives. And in this case, it is 2 positives because that one's also plus. Right? If I put 2 negatives in there, there's no negatives in my final part up there, so I don't want any negatives anywhere near this. All right, so there's our signs. Last one's positive. When I said same signs, that means they're both plus or both minus. That's what I mean by same signs. All right, so then we have to list our factors. What do you multiply to get 12? And then don't forget the obvious one. There you go. Sometimes it's that obvious one, and people like, I listed them all my factors, none of them work. And I'm like, how about 1 and 12? They forget the easy one. All right, and then I also have to list all of our factors for A, because I have to figure out, I gotta get this number too. That's just 1 and 2. All right, now here's the fun part. Ready for this? We get to guess. So obviously the first part has to be 1 and 2, right? Because there's no other option. So 1x and 2x. Don't lose your x's. I will take a point off for that. Because if you don't put an x there, when you multiply it back together, you're never going to get an x squared if you don't put an x in there. All right, and then do you want to go 1 and 12, 2 and 6, or 3 and 4? One and 12. All right, so if we go 1 and 12, 1, 12. Now, let me give you guys a little bit of advice, because sometimes you get a big list of numbers and you're like, oh my God, I'm never going to guess which one's the right one. Did this original problem have a GCF? No, it didn't. So does one of your parentheses right now have a GCF in it? 2 goes into both of those. That should be a red flag. That cannot happen. If there's no GCF here, there should not be a GCF in any of these. So that means 2 and 12 cannot go in the same thing together. However, would it be okay if I moved it the 1 and 12 like that. Yeah, now there's no GCF sitting inside of here. Okay, but that helps eliminate some possibilities without you trying them out. Okay, so if we check this, we would distribute. So we get 2x squared plus x plus 24x plus 12. Does my two terms in the middle give me 11? No. All right, so that does not work. So we would go back to the drawing board. Now, the placement of them matters, right? If I would put the 1 here and 12 here, I'd get a different answer, but we know that that can't work. So my suggestion to you is, like, if you're trying a set of numbers, before you discard it, try flipping them and see if you get the right answer that way. If it still doesn't, then discard and move on to something else. You want to go 2 and 6 or 3 and 4? Good. Some of you caught on. It has to be 4 and 3, right? 3 and 4. The 4 can't go here because I put a GCF in here. Okay, so try that one. That gives me 2x squared. That's 3x. That gives me 8x. And a positive 12. Do my middle terms give me 11x now? Yes, they do. So the correct factored answer is x plus 4 and 2x plus 3. Now, a couple things. I laugh and yet it annoys me at the same time, just so you guys are aware. I see students all the time, they have their problem, they do this, they check their work, and then they put a circle around this answer. What is this answer? What is this? It's the original problem. Okay, make sure you're aware the factoring is your two sets of parentheses. That is it kind of broken back apart. Okay? Now, could I have written it as 2x plus 3 and then x plus 4? Would that have been okay? Mm-hmm. What's 3 times 4? What's 3 times 4? What's 4 times 3? No. Well, that example backfired, didn't it? But does it matter what order the numbers are when you multiply them? No, it doesn't matter. So like here, like the entire groups being switched is okay. I still have a 2x plus 3. I have an x plus 4. I have the right same groups, so it doesn't matter. Now, did it matter if I flip-flopped a single number in them? Yes, that makes a difference. Okay? All right, 4x squared minus 4x minus 3. Okay? There's no GCF, right? There's no number that goes into all of them. So I'm going to go ahead and set up my parentheses. And we got to do our signs. So we look at which sign? The last one. So looking at that last one as a negative. How do you multiply to get a negative number? Good. A positive and a negative. You could do a negative and then a positive. I don't care. But it's got to be 1 plus 1 minus. Got to be. Yeah. When it comes to that, like, I'd seriously focus on that last sign. Because I have students all the time who are like, well, that one's a minus and that one's a minus. And then like, they're like, I'm like, oh my gosh, you're making this complicated. How do you multiply to get a negative? 1 plus 1 minus, done. Okay. I don't care what the other one is. All right. I care about the other one when I start multiplying this together. All right. So what are my options for A? 1 and 4, 2 and 2. Are you guys okay that this is A, this is B, this is C? AX squared plus BX plus C, right? That's just so you guys are okay with that. All right, options for C? 1 and 3. All right, so now we got to plug them in. The A parts always go first. The C parts always go last. So you want to go 1 and 4 or 2 and 2? 2 and 2? So 2x and 2x. 1 and 3 or 3 and 1? Doesn't matter? Okay. Doesn't matter, he says. Throw them in. We'll find out. All right, so let's check it. So we get 4x squared minus 6x plus 2x minus 3. Middle terms give me negative 4x. Is that what I wanted? Yeah, nice. It worked. Now, let's come back to the comment he made of doesn't matter. Now I see why he's saying doesn't matter, because they're both 2's, right? These are both 2's, so did it really matter? What if I had done 2x minus 1 and 2x plus 3? Would it change my answer? That would give me 4x squared plus 6x minus 2x minus 3. Did it change it? That's positive 4x. So it did matter. Okay? Yeah, this is a positive 4x. This one's negative 4x. I wanted negative. So I worked out where we put them to start with was fine. But kind of a rule of thumb, guys, if you go all the way through and you're like, the number's right, but the sign is wrong, what would you, only thing you'd have to do to fix it? Just flip your sign. Yeah, don't touch the numbers. If you got the numbers to work out what you wanted, but your sign was backwards, just flip those backward signs. And you'll be okay. X squared plus 6x plus 8. All right, no GCF. We'll set up our parentheses. What are my signs? Good, they're both positives. All right, last one's positive. How do you multiply to get a positive? Both plus or both minus. There's no minuses in there, so I'm going to go with the both plus option. Options for A? Good, just 1 and 1. And for C? All right, so 1 and 1's my only option, so 1x and 1x. If you want the 1's there, if it makes you feel better, you can. I'm just too lazy to write them. Okay. 1 and 8 or 2 and 4? 2 and 4. All right, so if we check. We have x squared plus 4x plus 2x plus 8. Middle terms give me 6x. Is that what we wanted? Yay! That one worked. So when my A value is just a 1, does it make it easier or harder? Easier. There's not as many options to kind of play around with. When you have a number in front here, that A value, then you have options for that one and options for C. That's the ones that get a little trickier. All right, x squared plus 12x plus 20. All right, no GCF, nothing that goes into all of them. So I'll set up our parentheses. What are my signs? Good, both plus. All right, because what do you multiply to get a positive? 2 plus, 2 minus. And there's no minuses anywhere. We're going with pluses. Options for A. How do you multiply to get a 1? 1 and 1. Options for C. Thank you for a nice organized list. Appreciate that. All right, so options for A was just 1 and 1. So 1x and 1x. 1 and 20, 2 and 10, 4 and 5. 2 and 10. All right, if we check, we get x squared plus 10x plus 2x plus 20. In the middle, that gives me 12x. Did it work? Yep. Now, you guys know that I'm a lazy mathematician, right? If I can write less and do less, I'm going to do less. When I'm checking these, because you have to check them. Now, eventually, you'll probably get to the point where you're checking them mentally and you're not writing it, which is great. Most of us are probably not there yet. But which is the only part of that that I keep checking to make sure it works? The middle ones. So could I just multiply to get those middle ones? I really could. And that's honestly, that's how I check them all the time. As long as you're using numbers from A as the first numbers and numbers from C as the last numbers, those should work, okay? So the middle ones are the ones I'm checking. So a lot of times I refer to that as your OI. Check your OI. Where am I getting that from? Watch your mouth. Sorry. But no, that's where I'm pulling it from, right? The outside and the inside are the ones that make those two middle terms. So a lot of times when I'm checking, I'm just like, okay, there's that, does that work? I'm just checking those multiplies. If you're more comfortable to do the full distribution, by all means, go ahead. I'm just lazy and I'm allowing you to be lazy as well. How about that? Your teacher told you to be lazy. X squared plus 19x plus 60. GCF? No. I like them without the GCF. Makes them easier. All right, so we set up our parentheses. What are my signs? Good, both plus. Again, always looking at the last one. It's positive. How do you multiply to get 2 positives? 2 plus, 2 minus. There's no minuses in there, so we're going to pluses. You will hear me say that so many times. All right, options for A. Options for C. Is there anything after 2? Ooh. 3 and, there we go, 3 and 20. 4? 4 and 15. 5? Good. 6? 7? 8? 9? And I don't have to go any further because 10's already on my list. I have some students who will seriously go like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and they keep going. I'm like, oh my gosh, you have the rest of the numbers on the other side of your list. Don't keep going. They're already there. All right. Whew. That's quite the list. Do we have to try a lot of these, you think? No? Have you already kind of caught on to the easy ones? I hope you have. Options for A? 1 and 1, so 1x and 1x. Option for C? How did you know it was 4 and 15? Magic. I like it. It's just magic, you know. Just that good. If there's no number in front, right, there's no A value, obviously that makes fewer options. But if there's no A value, you can look at your numbers. Which one makes 19? 4 and 15 make 19, okay? But again, just kind of looking at that check, I can just do the outside and the inside. So inside gives me 4x, outside gives me 15x, and together they make 19x, which is what I wanted, okay? So how many of you guys have learned this before? Okay, handful of you. Did any of you that have learned this before learn it with a different method? A grouping method where you turn it into 4 terms? Did anybody learn it that way? Okay, but you've seen them both. Okay. Some students like the method that turns them into 4 because to them it's more clear cut and like they get the process and whatnot. But I tell you what, we get to things where we need to factor a whole lot of things quickly, and that process is so painful. Like I did that one semester, like I'm gonna try teaching it and see if kids do better. Oh my gosh, when we got to the chapter 8 where you have to factor like fractions, so like tops and bottoms, like you have all these parts and pieces you're putting together, and I had taught that method, I'm like, oh my God, like a problem that should have taken like 5 minutes took almost 20 because that process was so much slower. So please don't use that method. Okay, 2x squared minus 5x minus 25. GCF? No. Okay, no GCF. So then I'm going to set up my parentheses. I'm going to look at that last sign and see that it's negative and know that, how do you multiply to get a negative? Good, a negative and a positive. I always write my plus first just because that's me. If you put your minus first, that's okay. Doesn't matter. Just got to play around with your numbers. All right, options for A. 1 and 2. Options for C. All right, that's not so bad. Honestly, the numbers that you should be like, ugh, is when you see a 24 or a 36. Because there's a lot of ways to multiply to get 24 and 36. Those are the lists that get super long. All right. We got 1 and 2. So 1x and 2x. 1 and 25 or 5 and 5? Do you want to go 5 and 5 or you want 5 and 5? Okay, she wants 5 and 5. We'll go with that one. It was a joke, guys. You're supposed to laugh. It's as good as they get. It's going to be a long semester if you don't start laughing at my bad mom jokes, okay? All right. Am I good? Should I just circle my answer and like call it good? I mean, I stuck numbers in. Is that good enough? Oh, I can't. I got to check this thing. I can at least lazy man check it. All right. So the inside gives me 10x. Outside gives me minus 5x. which is a positive 5x. Good. I have the number right, but it's supposed to be negative. Well, that just means my signs are backwards. So I'm going to just change that one to the minus and that one to the plus. Because then if I check this, the inside now is negative 10, outside now is positive 5. Now it works. Okay, so as long as the number's right, if the sign's wrong, just flip-flop your signs. Now, if they're both pluses and I flip-flop them, does it do anything? If they're both minuses and I flip-flop them, I don't do anything. Okay, that trick only works if you have 1 plus, 1 minus. Okay. All right, x squared plus 6x minus 40. GCF? All right, set up your parentheses. My signs, look at the last one. How do you multiply to get a negative number? Positive and a negative. Look at that. I even changed her. She said positive first that time. Options for A? 1 and 1. Options for C? Start with the obvious. 2 and 3? No. 4? 4 and 5? 5 times 8 is 40. If you guys need a calculator, by all means, use a calculator, okay? 6 and 7 don't work. All right. So we got 1 and 1, so 1x and 1x. And which option you want? 10 and 4? I like the order you said that in. Someone was thinking ahead. All right, so if I check, my inside gives me a positive 10x. Outside gives me a negative 4x. And 10 minus 4 is a positive 6x, which is exactly what we wanted. How are we feeling right now? Process seem okay? Yeah. The biggest thing is when you have long lists for A and C, then it's like, oh. What's really painful is when I watch students that had the right answer, but then they're like, they added or subtracted wrong when they put their like terms together, so they thought it didn't work. So then they went through like every other option. That's painful. So be very careful, watch your signs. Why don't you guys try this one on your own? Look at that, I'm giving you a hard one on your own. All right, guys, let's go through this together. I'm going to kind of play devil's advocate here and show you. I know I talked to numerous people walking around. Just kind of show you when you have a huge list like we did on these, like how we can avoid trying every option known to man. Okay, because there is no GCF in here. My last one is negative, which means my signs have to be plus and a minus. When you're making your list, you had 1 and 36, 2 and 18, 3 and 12, 4 and 9, 6 and 6. All right, over here we had 1 and 12, 2 and 6, 3 and 4. So it's not as terrible, but still, we have a lot of possibilities. Okay. Sometimes it's the 1 in 36 or like the 1 in 12, but I'll be honest, most times it's probably not. That's usually never my first go-to is the 1 in something. Okay. Also keep in mind the number in the middle is an 11. So if you're trying to multiply a 36 by a 12, your numbers are getting huge. Okay, so you got to kind of keep in mind, is the number I want in the middle really big or is it kind of small? Sometimes it helps you kind of look at your possibilities. All right, but like, let's say some of you kind of went right away with the 6x and 6x. You're like, yeah, it's kind of middle of the road, not too big, not too small. But no matter what you picked over here, like if I would go 2 and 6, GCF of 2, GCF of 6. Doesn't work, right? Let's say I put in the 3 and 4. GCF of 3, GCF of 2. Like, no matter which option I'd put in with a 6 and 6 would give me a GCF inside. So what's that mean about 6 and 6? It can't work because it's going to have a common factor no matter what I pair it with. So that cannot work. All right. So if I look at 4 and 9, so if I just go ahead and put in like 9x and 4x, that okay? No, I got a GCF of 3 and a GCF of 4. I can't have that. Okay, but what happens if I flip-flop my 3 and my 4? Now are there GCFs? No, nothing goes into 9 and 4. Nothing goes into 4 and 3. I finally have something worth checking because I don't have GCF sitting in there. So if I check, I get 16x. Those ones are going to give me negative 27x. 16 minus 27 is negative 11x, which is exactly what I wanted. Had I put a positive 11x here, what would have been my option to do? Just flip-flop the plus and minus. This one actually worked out. So you should have a 9x plus 4 and a 4x minus 3. If you had those parentheses flipped, that's okay, as long as one's a 9x plus 4 and one of them's a 4x minus 3. Okay? All right. Should this one be easy or hard? Well, this one should be way easier than the last one, right? That last one had so many options. No GCF. What's my signs? How do you know that? Good. Which one's negative? Which one told you that? Last one. Am I even looking at that other sign? No. I'll worry about that when I'm actually like multiplying together. But now I'm looking at that last one. How do you multiply to get negative? One positive, one negative. Options for A? Ah, a 1 and a 1. So much nicer than that 36. And 21? 1 and 21 and 3 and 7. Good. Hey, that's all my possibilities there. Those lists are so much smaller. All right, so we're going to go 1x and 1x. And then 1 and 21 or 3 and 7? 3 and 7. In that order? Some of you are learning some tricks there. All right, so if I check, I get a positive 3x, a minus 7x, 3 minus 7, negative 4x, which is exactly what I wanted. Well, that problem was like a breath of fresh air after the last one. All right, you guys want to do the next one on your own? Yay, I'd love to. Yeah, okay, great. Do the next one on your own. 4x squared minus 16x plus 15. All right. So no GCF in my problem. Setting up parentheses. Last one's positive. How do you multiply to get a positive number? Negative times a negative, or in this case, I want the negatives, right? If I would put 2 pluses in here, there's no way I'd end up with a negative number in the middle, right? So either 2 plus or 2 minus, it's going to be the minuses. All right, options for A, we have 1 and 4, or 2 and 2. Options for C, 1 and 15, or 3 and 5. Did you guys go 1 and 4 or 2 and 2? 1 and 4. So 1x and 4x. 1 and 15 or 3 and 5? 5 and 3? 3 and 5? You guys gotta talk to me. 5 and 3, thank you. So when I check that, I get negative 20x minus 3x. That's negative 23x. How'd I do? That didn't work. All right, back to the drawing board. So when something doesn't work, my suggestion, and that was 5 and 3, switch it to 3 and 5. I'll be real honest with you. Like flipping numbers, I only flip my C values. Because what would happen if I would flip both my C values and my A values? I turned it right back into the original thing I just checked. All I've done is pretty much taken those parentheses and flipped them. Okay, so I only changed my C ones. I'll flip those. So checking here, that gives me negative 12x and negative 5x. That's negative 17x. Oh, can I just call it close enough? No. So what does that mean? I mean, 1 and 4 with 3 and 5 is not a good combo. So do you want to change the 1 and 4, or do you want to change the 3 and 5? Change the 1 and 4? Okay. All right, so let's, oops, I said I wasn't changing that. You guys want to change that to a, what, 2 and 2? All right, so if I change that one, now I get negative 6x, and that gives me negative 10x, which is negative 16x. Yay, worked that time. So I need a 2x minus 3 and a 2x minus 5. All right. Let's skip this one. Sorry, overachievers. Jump to this one. There is? What goes into one? Oh. If that was a 20, there would have been, right? Yeah. I'm glad you're looking, though. So no GCF. All right, set up my parentheses. Last one's negative. My signs are? Good. A positive and a negative. See, I'm a positive person. I'm going to put that plus first. Are you a negative person? You always say you're negative first. You're just alphabetical. How about that? N comes before P. We'll go with that. Sounds better. All right, so options for A, we have 1 and 5, and that's it. Options for C. 3 and 5. Grace, I'm so glad you're in this class. She talks to me. You what? Okay, thanks. I like when you guys talk to me. Am I that scary? Is that what it is? Are you guys more talkative later in the day? I'll trust that. Some of you, I believe, don't talk like ever. All right. So options for A, we just have 1x and 5x. 1 and 15 or 3 and 5? Ooh, somebody said 5 and 3. Why can't I go 3 and 5? Good. If I put the 5 here, you'd have GCF sitting there. So it would have to be 5 and 3. Okay, checking that, we get 25x minus 3x. That gives me 22x. Yay. What? Oh. You guys got one more in you? You got one more, right? We can do one more. You don't think so? Last one? Come on, last one. Last one. Last one for today. I know, it's a lot of factoring. Whew. So what do you think? Last one. Thank you. There's a greatest common factor. What goes into all of them? 3. So think back to what we did on Wednesday. Put the 3 in the front. Yep. And then we divide them all by 3, right? We undistribute that 3, pull it back out of all of them. Kylie, you with me, hon? All right, so if I pull off that 3, what do we have left? 8x squared plus 20, not 1, 23x minus 3. Now, I saw a couple overachievers who were working ahead, and that's okay. They factored that, and it worked, but they didn't take the GCF out. Will I count it right or wrong? I'll count it wrong. Yep. Save that thought. We'll talk about that in a minute. Okay? Hold that thought. All right. So once I pull out my GCF, the reason I love GCF being in there is look how big those numbers were. Now look at my numbers. They're a lot smaller. And that can eliminate a whole lot of possibilities. Okay? So when I'm looking, I refer to the GCF as your baby brother often. Like, he's obnoxious and annoying, but mom asked you to watch him, so you have to like keep him there, but like you just want to kind of ignore him most of the time, right? That's what we're gonna do with him. Okay? He's there, and I'm gonna keep him with me, but I push him to the side. Okay? I'm ignoring him for the time being, because I'm looking at there's my A, there's my C. Okay? Options for A. Don't care about baby brother. He's there, and I can't lose him. My mom's going to be really mad at me, but I'm just going to ignore him. So later on, when you bring things up to me, like, can you check this? And I'm going to go, you forgot your baby brother. That's what I'm going to look at you. I'm like, your mom's mad at you. That's what I'm referring to. Do not keep him with you. He's there. Don't lose him. Right? Options for C, 1 and 3. All right. So when you are factoring, set up our parentheses. I'm looking still at my last sign. So my signs are, yes, I'm making you a positive person. Positive and a negative. It really doesn't matter. You can put them in any order. Doesn't matter. All right, you want to go 1 and 8 or 2 and 4? 1 and 8. So 1x and 8x. 1 and 3 or 3 and 1? Let's check it. 1 and 3. Doesn't take much to check it. Right? Inside would give me 8x minus 3x. That's 5x. That didn't work. My numbers aren't nearly big enough. All right, so what do I need to change? Yeah, let's flip up that 1 and 3. So let's put the 3 and then the 1. Because now when I check it, that gives me 24x minus 1x. That's a positive 23x. That's what I wanted. So it worked. So what is your final factored answer that I'm going to be like, yay, and give you 100% for? Is this it? Baby brother, right? He's got to come down. He's hanging out. Because what do we know about factoring? My factored answer should be the same or different from the original problem. Should be the same. And if I forget baby brother and I multiply these two back together, as far as I'm going to get is here. The only way to get all the way back to the beginning then is to have baby brother so he can multiply all the way through as well. Okay? Now, the question, couldn't I just divide it out at the end, right? And I believe when you factored yours, did you have 3x plus 9? I think you had a 3x plus 9 and an 8x minus 1. Sorry, this one I know that he had factored. He factored like this. Now check this. This would give me 72x minus 3x is 69x, which is exactly what the original problem was. However, there's a GCF sitting in here. So your question of, couldn't I just divide it out of everything? It divides out of one of them. Yeah. So if there's a GCF here, could you pull out a 3 now? Divide these both by 3. That gives me x plus 3. That's exactly what I have here. You could. Okay. Think of your list for 24. 1 and 24, 2 and 12, 3 and 8, 4 and 6. My list of 8, 1 and 8, 2, 4. Okay. If it has a GCF, make sure you pull that out first, because it's going to make your number smaller to work with, as opposed to pulling it out at the end. But if you give me this for an answer on a test, it's wrong. I'm taking a point off, because it's not fully factored. You didn't pull that GCF out.